morning.
Good morning.
Okay, good. Do we have some Tennessee Real Estate Commissioners on the line?
We have some realtors online.
Okay. We're going to give everyone a few moments to arrive, and then we will be calling roll for the commissioners as well as those who are dialing in to participate in the meeting.
Right. Thank you.
This is Diane Johnny.
Oh, call roll. We have to call roll for the commissioners, and we have to call roll for.
Ladies and gentlemen on the phone call, if you are on the phone, please mute your phone unless you are speaking.
Hello?
This meeting will come to order. This is Austin McMullen, Vice Chairman of the Tennessee Real Estate Commission. This is a meeting of the Tennessee Real Estate Commission that was scheduled by Executive Director Malcolm Young on Thursday, August the 18th, 2016, pursuant to the regular policies and procedures of the state of Tennessee. Mr. Young is going to call the roll of real estate commissioners at this time. I ask, again, if you are on the call and you are not actively speaking, please mute your phone. We are getting lots of noises here in the meeting room that are coming in through people's phones. So please check your phone to make sure it's muted if you're just listening in. Mr. Young, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chairman. First of all, I would like to read the public notice into the record. The meeting date, time, and location have been noticed on the Tennessee Real Estate Commission's website since August 18th. Additionally, the agenda for this meeting has been posted on the TN Real Estate Commission's website since Thursday, August the 18th. And this meeting has been noticed on the tn.gov website since Thursday, August the 18th, 2016. The first thing I will do is do the roll call of commissioners either present in the room with us today or by phone. John Grease. Rick Douglas. Gary Bloom. Diane Hills. Austin McMullen.
Here.
Marcia Franks.
Here.
Bobby Wood. Fontaine Taylor. Johnny Horn. Mr. Chairman, at this time, you do not have a quorum, but I did verify with all of the commissioners on Thursday afternoon that they would be present. I would probably delay the meeting to check on some kind of technical difficulty.
Right. Commissioner Grease, are you on the phone? Commissioner Douglas, are you on the phone? Commissioner Bloom, are you on the phone? Commissioner Hills, are you on the phone? Commissioner Wood, are you on the phone? Commissioner Taylor, are you on the phone? Commissioner Horn, are you on the phone? All right, Mr. Young, I agree at this time that we need to stand in a brief recess while we ensure that we do have a quorum. So if everyone would just hold the line for a couple of moments, we will try to get the remaining number of commissioners in order to have a quorum.
Diane Hills.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hey, it's Gary Bloom.
Okay. Okay. We will, the meeting will come back to order. As I mentioned, this, and as Executive Director Young mentioned, this is a meeting of the Tennessee Real Estate Commission. I ask that if you are on the phone and you are not a commissioner of the Real Estate Commission, please put your phone on mute at this time so that we can call the roll of the Real Estate Commissioners. Mr. Young, will you call the roll at this time, please?
John Grease.
He was on the other line. I hope he's calling in. We all had wrong numbers.
Rick Douglas. Rick Douglas.
Present.
Gary Bloom.
Here.
Diane Hills.
Here.
Austin McMullen.
Here.
Marcia Franks. Bobby Wood.
Here.
Fontaine Taylor.
Here.
Johnny Horn.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Acting Chairman, you have a quorum.
Hey, John Grease is here too for a little bit.
All right, thank you, John.
Commissioner Douglas, are you on the phone?
Yes, he is.
I am, yes. Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you, yes. Thank you very much. Well, we have all of the commissioners here. Thank you for taking time this morning to call in. Ms. Kirby, I believe that you need to identify the other people who are on the call who are licensees who are not members of the Real Estate Commission. So do you want to do that at this time?
Actually, I have the list.
Okay, well, we need them to identify themselves, though,
Okay.
over the phone.
Okay, so if you are a licensee who is not a member of the Real Estate Commission, at this time, would you please unmute your phone, and I will tell you in just a moment to identify yourself, but we have, I think, 5 licensees who are here in the room with us this morning. And so I would like for each of them to please identify themselves first, and we will check them off the list, and then we will get the people who are on the phone. Okay? Ms. Patterson, do you want to go first? And if you could please speak into the microphone, and if you all wouldn't mind coming up over here to the microphone.
Paula Patterson.
And also, if you could give your license number.
Go ahead, Ms. Patterson.
294732. Judy Rohart, 263126.
Neely Crombie, 324852.
What's your number?
It's 324852.
And what's your last name?
It's Crombie. I
Okay.
think I have that right. I can double check my number.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Christopher Sin, 321078.
Thomas Saul, 290175.
Repeat the number.
290175.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, if you are on the phone, please identify yourself by name and number. And if someone else is speaking, please let them finish, and we'll get everyone who's on the phone.
Do we want to go through the roll
have a roll?
first and
Yep.
then maybe
I
see
think
who
that
else
would
is
be
not
easier.
on the
Let's do
roll
that.
call?
Okay, Mr.
Okay.
Young, will you call the roll?
Yes. Timothy C. SEAY.
Yes, I'm here. My number is 305730.
Carol Blaylock.
Yes, I'm here. My number is 317435.
Kristen Cash. Kristen Cash. All right, am I hearing Kristen Cash? Baker Jones.
Here, my number's 2435.
Dan Harder.
I'm here. 51597.
Okay. Kimberly Yearwood.
Present 283347.
Mark Hall. Mark Hall?
Is it Mark Hall?
Yes.
Yes, I'm here. My number is 329864.
Robin LaFevers.
I'm here. My number is 265619.
Travis LaFevers.
I'm here. My number's 304403.
Justin Lewis. Justin Lewis. Deshina Renee Watts.
I'm here. My number is 317151.
Julie Johnson.
Present. My number is 281780.
Missy Shaw.
Present. My number is 329831.
Guy Ritchie. Guy Ritchie. Are there any others that I did not call?
Yeah.
Charles Knoll, Knoll, and I don't have my number. I'm on vacation with my wife, and a lady left me a voicemail last night to get on this morning.
Okay, and your first name's Charles?
The first name's Charles, middle name Whitney, last name is Knoll.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yes.
Yes, this is Tom Patterson.
Okay, I have you on the list.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And do I have anybody else?
Vernon Dan Watson. You have me on the list, Tom Patterson?
Yes.
Watson.
Vernon Watson.
My number is 12056. Vernon Dan Watson.
All right, thank you, sir.
Yes, Guy Ritchie,
All right, guy. What's your number?
321089. Guy Ritchie.
Okay.
James Jones. James Jones, 15621.
Okay, anybody else on the call?
Julie Radabaugh, 327937.
Okay, thank you, Julie.
Eric Johnson,
Johnson?
Right there. Got it.
All right. Anybody else?
This is Tom Patterson. I want to be sure you said you had me on the list.
Tom Patterson, say yes, you have him.
Yes, Mr. Patterson, we have you on the list.
Thank you.
Were y'all able to hear Eric Johnson?
Eric Johnson, we have you on the list.
How about James Jones?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I believe you have everybody that's on the call.
You did get Bernadette and Watson.
Yes, we have you on the list.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your patience as we go through that process. Again, now at this time, since we have all of the attendees marked, if you are not a member of the Real Estate Commission, I would ask that you please mute your phone at this time so that we can discuss the issues that we have before us. The volume went down pretty low in here. It's going back up. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Ms. Kirby, do you have something to tell us before we get started?
Yes, because there is not a physical quorum of commissioners present today, there must be a determination of necessity in order to commence this meeting without a physical quorum. So for consideration is the following statement of necessity, and this is for consideration and discussion. The matters to be considered by the governing body at this meeting regarding the processing of reinstatement orders while a proposed rule removing meeting attendance requirements is pending, the effect of previously entered orders after the effectiveness of the new rule, and consideration of an emergency rule require timely action by the Commission. A physical presence by a quorum of the members is not practical within the period of time requiring action, and participation by a quorum of the members by electronic or other means of communication is necessary.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kirby. Before we discuss or vote on that motion, I do want to summarize the situation that has us here today, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. When I finish with this, Mr. Young, if you want to, or Ms. Kirby, if you want to fill in anything that I might have missed, feel free. But basically the situation is this. The existing rules of the Real Estate Commission require whenever a person's license has expired and they do not reinstate that within 60 days, the existing rules require the payment of certain fees, the confirmation that you've completed your continuing education, and attendance at a meeting. So if you're more than 60 days beyond expiration, you have to do basically those three things. Now, several months ago, the Real Estate Commission passed a new rule that would eliminate the meeting attendance requirement. We passed that, and according to Tennessee state procedures, that new rule had to go to the Attorney General's office to be approved. Well, that's where it is right now. And since the new rule hasn't been finally approved by the Attorney General, we're still operating under the old rule, which requires meeting attendance. Now, my understanding is that even after the Attorney General approves the new rule, there's still a period of several months. I've heard 90 days, I've heard 180 days. It's at least several months, I think it's safe to say that, before the new rule will go into effect, which removes the meeting attendance requirement. So we have heard from licensees, I assume those are most of the people who are on the phone, who have completed all of the requirements to be reinstated except attend a meeting. And the problem that these licensees faced is that their license has expired. And until they attend a meeting, their license is not reinstated. And we won't have another meeting until September sometime. And that puts a pretty significant obstacle in the presence of them continuing to practice, because obviously they could be prosecuted for practicing without a license. It puts an obstacle in their clients continuing with their transactions. So that causes a significant hardship to licensees and to their clients, to the members of the public. And so we have heard those issues, and so that is the reason for the meeting today. And I hope that we're able to address this in a way that we can reach a good resolution for the licensees and for the public. So Ms. Kirby has read for us a proposed statement of necessity, which is required by law in order for us to continue with this meeting by having less than a quorum here physically present. We have a quorum, but 7 of the 9 are on the phone. So in order for us to continue with this type of situation, we do have to have a statement of necessity that is made as a motion and seconded and voted on. So commissioners, you have heard the statement of necessity that Ms. Kirby read, and I have briefly explained the background as to why we're here. So at this point, I want to open up the floor for discussion regarding the statement of necessity.
Mr. Chairman, John Grease, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the statement of necessity as read into the record by Ms. Kirby.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Grease and a second by Commissioner Franks to adopt the statement of necessity. Is there any further discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Hills?
I have a couple questions to be sure that I understand. So this is an emergency meeting. What's the process for calling an emergency meeting? I mean, I tried to look last night on meetings of the commissioners. What's the process in calling an emergency meeting?
Well, it had to be noticed to the public and to the commissioners, which was done last week. But do you have anything to add, Mark?
This is Mr. Green.
If the determination of the commission or the staff, the director, enacting with the commission determines that an issue has come up that needs to be discussed, then basically the notice is posted, an agenda is adopted or crafted and sent out, and as long as notice is provided and the public has an opportunity to participate, then the staff can, or the commission can then call a meeting, a special meeting or an emergency meeting, however you want to frame it.
Another question. So how long for the notice?
The statute says reasonable time, and so that's it's not defined by a certain amount of days, but reasonable time to give notice to the public that there's going to be a meeting.
It seems that the public knows a little bit more than I do since there's so many people on here. But and who can request the emergency meeting?
The executive director, as well as the deputy assistant director of insurance and commerce.
Can I ask who requested this meeting?
With advice and counsel of the attorney, as well as the deputy assistant commissioner, I was the one that called the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the motion before us is on the statement of necessity. Is there any further discussion?
I would like to ask a question. This is Fontaine.
Yes.
Just so I'm sure what the procedure is for notifying licensees that licenses to expire, can you kind of go over that so I know for a fact what I'm voting on? Is the licensee, before their license expire, are they informed that it's going to expire?
Yes, ma'am.
In what way? In what manner?
They receive a letter of correspondence from the commission
And those are courtesy letters. The commission is not required by statute to send out notifications for license renewal.
That is, if that is true, are they sent out
Yes, they are sent out.
to every licensee?
Yes, ma'am.
And they're sent out at what time frame before the license is set to expire?
90 days.
90 days. All right. And so from the 90 days, then they have plenty of time. They should have time to receive that and get their information in. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I
And
have
also-
a question.
Okay,
Diane
Commissioner Hills.
And I'm just thinking of who, I'm not the managing broker here. I'm the owner broker, but not the managing broker. But when I see it, there's a letter sent to the licensee and to the managing broker, a copy sent to the managing broker. Is that correct?
We need to adopt we're going to have the meeting before we get into the content of the meeting.
Okay.
So that Ms. Kirby raises a good point. The motion currently before us is just a motion on a statement of necessity of the meeting. And these are certainly valid questions, and I think as we get into discussion of the substance, we can certainly discuss and address these. But if we do not pass this motion right now, then I think we will need to shut down the meeting because we won't have a quorum. So in order to have a meeting where the majority of people are on the phone, we have to adopt a statement of necessity. And so really the question is on the statement of necessity. Are there any further questions about that?
Call for the vote.
And all
Okay.
votes today, because we do not have a physical quorum, have to be done by roll call.
Okay, so Mr. Young, could you call the roll? And the question is on Commissioner Grease's motion, seconded by Commissioner Franks, to adopt the statement of necessity in order for us to continue with the meeting by telephone. Mr. Young.
Okay, roll call. John Grease,
Yes.
Rick Douglas. Rick Douglas.
I'm sorry, I was on the gate.
Gary Bloom.
Yes.
Diane Hills.
Yes.
Austin McMullen.
Yes.
Marsha Franks.
Yes.
Bobby Wood.
Yes.
Fontaine Taylor.
Yes.
Johnny Horn.
Yes.
The votes are unanimous, yes.
Okay, we have adopted the statement of necessity, and so therefore we can move on to the order of business that we have today. And we have, as I see it, probably 4 or 5 matters to address, depending on how you count them. And so the first would have to do with the whether attendance at this meeting fulfills the meeting attendance requirement. Is that the first order of business?
Yes, and I would like to recommend that the commission consider a motion based on the pendency of the rule removing the attendance requirement to consider attendance either physical or electronic of this meeting, the attendance of a regularly scheduled meeting by those attendees, meaning licensees.
Okay, so we have the existing rule. We have the rule that we have passed, which is currently before the Attorney General. And so since the new rule is not in effect, this motion would say that those who are either physically present today or who have called in and are on the line, and we have their names and numbers, will get credit for this meeting to fulfill the meeting attendance requirement in order to be reinstated. Does legal counsel, do you all want to speak to the motion?
I don't really have anything to add to that.
Okay. So is there...
Get this on the table. I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Chairman Grease, seconded by Commissioner Franks, to give credit to those who are either physically present or on the phone for those attending this meeting in order to fill the meeting requirement in order to be reinstated. Is there discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Hills.
So I didn't write everyone's license number down, but there's probably 15 licensees on the call.
That's approximately correct.
So how do other licensees, besides being noticed over the weekend that it was up, how would anyone else have had any clue to have called in to let this count as their meeting? I mean,
Okay, I'd like to recognize Assistant or Deputy Commissioner, Assistant Commissioner McCormack. Brian.
This is Assistant Commissioner Brian McCormack. Good morning, everyone. Ms. Hills, just to kind of explain sort of the thought behind that is the idea that really this is one of multiple options to which we are addressing what we believe is sort of is a in between. You've got essentially a vacuum between this season between you all passing the rule and it going into effect. The intention of the commission is very clear. So in terms of us identifying the fact that we have a number of folks that are in this intermediate period, the commission has already stated that this rule is no longer a position to which they want to take. We're trying as best we can to cover all of the licensees. And so this opportunity to have people call in today is one of multiple options that are going to be laid out this morning to cover that. So we essentially took every possible option that we thought would cover licensees who were going to be caught up in this interim period to try to participate in this call, or with potentially proposing as an emergency rule other options we'll hear. Well, I think we'll sort of cast a wide net that will cover all the licensees. I mean, that's essentially our goal in trying to achieve this and allowing people to get back to work as quickly as possible if this is the only thing that they're missing.
So, Commissioner McCormack, it may be beneficial to Commissioner Hills and possibly to others on the call as well if you could maybe give a little more background as far as how we got here. I think her specific question had to do with the 15 to 20 people who are either in the room or on the call. How did they know about the meeting? And so I'm sure that would probably tie into a little bit of the history. And so if you could just briefly address that, I think that may be helpful.
Okay, so the idea, I think what we'd been made aware of cases of folks that were caught up in like I said, this interim period. And so we decided that it was worth trying to identify a way of really solving the issue of really carrying out the commission's will to not require this moving forward. So we got together, Malcolm, I, legal, and others, to try to come up with some solutions that would really solve this issue. And the way we notify folks, we use Notify was one of the primary ways, which is it's the system to which you sign up. We tried to look at all the lists of all the folks that we thought were potentially in this reinstatement period, or where they would need this for reinstatement purposes, to try to reach out to those individuals as well. So we've both notified them through our communication methods, and we've also tried to be more proactive. We've looked at our call logs when people called in and asked these questions. We tried to pull that list to identify. So it's been a pretty comprehensive effort to try to get as many licensees involved in this process as we possibly could.
Okay, Commissioner Hills, do you have a follow-up question about that?
Yes. I mean, I'm just thinking of people as they come up after the meeting, the last meeting, and they would come up to our attorney and say, "Now, when will it be up? When will my license be up?" And I'm thinking about August meeting. I'm thinking about July meeting and things. There was someone I happened to know in July that came from Greenville and spent the 2 days through the end of the second day, late hearing, even though the chairman had released everyone to go. That person stayed. So why are we doing it now versus why didn't we consider it when we were sending this on to the Attorney General for a change?
I think that's a really fair question to ask, and I think we honestly, I think we were probably, I mean, I can't speak for you all. I think this is something that probably really slipped through the cracks in terms of understanding the process. And I think in hearing from individuals, when you're trying to explain to someone that the commission, and now they understand, I think, because it's become pretty aware to folks in the real estate industry that this rule is going away. I think it's been part of, I understand that, I believe it's been part of one of Malcolm's presentations, if Malcolm's mentioned it in his presentations. And so people know that. They know the rule's going away, and so it's a very hard, when people start calling and saying, I can't go to work tomorrow, I have to wait till next month, but the commission's already basically voted to get rid of this rule. It's a very, very hard thing to articulate, and I think that's really what's prompted is we've started having those questions based on this information getting out there, and I think that's made us really recognize that if the commission didn't intend for this to be a practice, it feels like we're really just going through the motions of a technicality, and we're trying to find a way to not act. We're trying to find a way to be responsive to both the needs of the commission and to the realtors who are trying to get back to work. And right now, the only way they can do that, even with the rule being out there that you say you want to change it, folks have to wait. If right now, if we weren't having this meeting or this conversation, and I would have to wait till the September meeting, and that's time I can't work. And I think the commission's already stated that that's a practice to which you're not going to move forward. And it feels very much like it's something that from an administrative side is very, very difficult to want to do, to say that we're going to not allow someone to practice. And that's really why I think those conversations and hearing from licensees, that's sort of what prompted this conversation.
Additional questions or comments regarding the current motion, which is to give credit to those who are here physically or on the phone for this meeting in order to complete the meeting requirement to be reinstated. Is there additional comment or question about that?
It's Jerry Bloom.
Okay, Commissioner Bloom.
Diane's question raises the point of fairness. Why don't we just agree that everybody who's in this position, whether they're on the phone or physically there, are exonerated, and they fall under this emergency rule?
And I think what I would respond to that is that we're going to propose more comprehensive. I think Vice Chair McMullen mentioned that there are some other things that we're going to do. I mean, from our standpoint, we can't just disregard the law. We're not able to do that here. But we're trying to find solutions, and this is a part of the solution. The other solutions will pull together to make what we think will mostly cover all your licensees as best we can.
Right. Yeah, Commissioner Bloom, this is one of 3 or 4 or 5 different things that we may do today. The ultimate goal of this is to fix this problem for everyone. But the first step in that, and I hope that by the end of the meeting today, we have solved this problem for everyone. But we were advised by our legal team of the different options that are available. And so we really have put all the options on the table here. This is just the first one that we're discussing. It's really limited to about 20 people who are either on the phone or here, but they will get credit for this meeting if this motion passes. Now, after this motion, there are others that we will discuss that will then, hopefully continue to address this issue for everyone. But as we will get into the discussion of those other issues, each of the different tools that we have available have pros and cons and limitations within the law. And so we want to present all of those to you, and this is just the first one.
Chairman,
Commissioner Hills.
I guess I feel a little frustrated that I haven't been given more information before dialing this number to be a little better prepared myself. Is a frustration. I just want to say that I guess I haven't. Again, maybe the licensees have had more information than I have had to be able to think about consequences, that type of thing. So I do want to say that.
Well, Commissioner, I understand and your aggravation there and your frustration, and I apologize for that. This is really a situation that has come up as the department, I think, heard from licensees and heard from members of the public and others in our community that this became an issue. We really acted quickly to try to deal with that. And I think Mr. Young, I know, has been working on this, spent a lot of time on it over the past few days and over the weekend. And his communication with the commissioners about the issues may not have been as extensive as we would have hoped. And I'm sure he understands that. But under the circumstances, there were a lot of things legally that had to be done to get out notices and to prepare for the meeting. And so that's what happened. And so I do apologize for the frustration and lack of information that you're feeling. And I'm sure that in the future, Mr. Young would commit to trying to send out more information ahead of time. This is just something that really came to a head late Thursday.
Excuse me, this is Fontaine. And
Yeah,
I
Ms. Taylor, Commissioner
yes.
Taylor.
And, yes, Ms. Taylor. The thing is, was cut off, and then I called back in and then couldn't make a comment, so I don't know where we are.
Okay, we are on the first order of business, which is Commissioner Grease's motion in order to give credit to those who are here in the room and on the phone for this as their meeting requirement in order to be reinstated.
All right.
Do you have a comment or a question about that motion?
I'm just totally frustrated with this process. I will say that. I do not feel like I have been a total part of it because I was cut off, and then when I got back on, I could not speak. So I guess if I say anything, that's it. But I don't feel that people calling in for one day should get a credit for the whole meeting, which usually lasts 2 full days. So that's my comment.
Okay, I understand that. I would point out that the commission has already decided a few months ago that we weren't going to require anyone to attend any meeting. And the only reason that rule is still being enforced is just the fact that in the procedure that we're required to go through, that rule is sitting at the Attorney General's office right now. So that's the reason that we're here. Hopefully, by the time this is over with, no one will have to attend any meeting in order to be reinstated.
Commissioner McMullen, it's Bobby Wood.
Yes, Commissioner Wood.
This is my concern. I mean, I think my guess is, there's certain people that got the message and they got on the phone call and that they may get the benefit of that. I got to believe if we were to approve this, they would be able to get licensed. There's just as many people, if not a lot more, that are going to start finding out about it. And we're going to be having more and more of these phone call meetings to take care of people. So that's my first concern. And then the second thing is, if the issue is the paperwork or whatever is sitting at the Attorney General's office, can they not do something to move it along quicker? And
sure.
And just end this so there is no meeting for us?
So those are great questions. Let me try to address those. With respect to your first point as to whether we would have to have future phone calls to address others who are trying to be reinstated, if we pass some of the additional measures that we anticipate discussing later in this meeting, then hopefully no future phone calls will be required. Second, your question about couldn't we just get the Attorney General to pass along their approval in order to get this wrapped up? The problem is that the rulemaking procedure that's required by the state of Tennessee, even after the Attorney General approves the rule, there is a waiting period of several months before the rule actually becomes effective. So even if we could get the Attorney General today to approve the rule that we passed several months ago, it's not going to be effective for several more months. and that's going to continue to leave licensees and the public facing a hardship of licensees not being licensed and the public not being able to complete transactions. So the procedures and the motions that we have on the agenda today will hopefully not only address those who are on the phone and in the room, but will address this issue for all licensees who need to be reinstated.
Commissioner Horn.
Yes, I'm sorry, who's Mr. Horn? Okay, Commissioner Horn.
Yes, I'm a little bit probably disconnected on how many people possibly are there that comes under this gap in the umbrella. I'm sure it's more than those that sitting there with you and the ones who called in. Are we talking about 50, 60? How many people are we talking about?
Mr. Young.
Commissioner Horn, I would say it's in the number between probably 50 and 70 that we're aware of. And as Deputy Assistant Commissioner stated, we used our best means of trying to identify all of those people Friday to communicate with them either by telephone or by email that we were having this meeting today to consider this a meeting.
All right. The only other thing about it that we act in behalf of those that are present today or as called in. How about the ones who dropped through the rug? I mean, they didn't get the message, so they get penalized for not being up to date, or what happens there?
So Commissioner Horn, the people who did not get the message or couldn't call in or couldn't be here, we hope to address their situation through the additional motions that we plan to discuss after we decide this motion. But it's just that we are pulling out all the tools out of the toolbox to deal with the problem. And right now we're just talking about the first tool, which would solve the problem for about 20 of the people who are facing the problem.
Commissioner McMullen?
Commissioner Hills, what did you say?
So will this be helpful in the future for any rule change we request? Once we send it to the Attorney General's office, will we be able just to have a called meeting, emergency called meeting, to take care of what we are requesting before the process through the Attorney General and then the months of waiting?
I'll let Commissioner McCormack address that.
So let me respond. I think the question you raise is again fair. The consideration this is not a normal course of action. We have tried to come up with a situation to which we think is the most fair for as many people as we possibly can. And right now there are 15, 20 people on the phone that unless we make the adjustments that we're talking about, cannot practice real estate until September without fear of discipline by this commission. And that is the reality. Even though the commission has passed this rule, this is making it easier for people to get to work. And from an administration standpoint, that's why we're making this push. This is a significant and from a heart. You've already determined the merits of it, and so we're trying from an administration to get these folks back to work as quickly as possible based on the fact that you all believe this is no longer a needed requirement. And that's why I felt strongly that we needed to do this sooner rather than later, because there are people in this room right now that can't practice, have deals prepared, and are trying to get them done, and there are people that will soon be coming up on that, and we're just trying to figure out a solution. And so I would not say that we would come to you for every rule, and because there very rarely are these kind of considerations that really have this level of impact on the industry.
And to follow up with that, so if we and I've received one of these calls before from the man in Greenville. So when we have something like that, I feel like I've let someone down. When we have something like that, who do we direct them to be able to solve a problem like this in the future? Where do we direct it?
Well, I would always say that if you have licensees that are bringing up questions, that you would share this to Malcolm or me. I can tell you there's not an issue I've heard more since I've been at the department probably than this particular concern. So this is obviously very, very high on our radar. It's high on the radar of licensees. It's high on the radar of the legislature. It's high on the radar of the administration generally. So in terms of issues that you all think are pertinent, we would most certainly want to know what those issues are. So that's the process.
Okay. And one more. Are we using a mailing company to send out the notices? Because I know things can be lost in the mail, but it seems like a large number of people, and brokers included, the broker or the licensee did not receive mail. So are we still using a company that does our mailings for us, or do we do it?
So I'm glad you've asked about this. We send the notices. They're all produced here, and they're all sent through state postal, and they go out. One of the things in this process that I've determined is worth us taking a look at is the fact that we are hearing probably more disproportionately from real estate industry than any other industry that they don't notices that they're not getting their notices. That we hear that probably comment more disproportionately here than in any other program. And so we are currently in the process of auditing that process for us to make sure that we are verifying that's working. We're going to taking various steps to figure out sort of what's the situation in regards to that, because we want to make sure that we believe that we're creating notice and sending notices out to every agent. That's the understanding. And so internally we're trying to figure out a solution to make sure that, because regardless of whether or not reinstatements or this has changed, they still, if they're late, have to pay a penalty. And so obviously while it is a courtesy, we've always wanted to extend the courtesy to get renewal notices out. So that's one of the things that we are taking a hard look right now, kind of going along sort of parallel to this conversation we're doing here.
Commissioner Franks. Oh, go ahead. Commissioner, who is this? Commissioner Taylor?
Taylor. Right.
Okay, Commissioner Taylor.
In the fact that these are mailed out, is there, I've lost my question now. I'll come back to you in a minute.
Okay.
Something else.
I'll call on Commissioner Franks, then I'll come back to you, Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Franks.
I just wanted to say I came on the commission January 2015, and when I came on, this was just a standard practice, was that everybody had to come for the 2-day meeting. And honestly, I just thought, well, that's what they do. And so I remember this past year when there was a gentleman, I think he was from Bristol, that had to spend the night in his car because he couldn't afford a hotel. And to me, that was so much more punitive to him than it would be to someone like me in Middle Tennessee and Franklin. And that's where all of this started, and I started thinking about, the discrepancies in what our punitive measures were. And so now I think the reason we're here today is to totally, in every way, do away with that. Because as a principal broker, I know that it would affect my whole office if I didn't have a license. I'd have to get another principal broker or whatever. But I just wanted to remind you of, it was something that we just did. I wasn't here when it was voted to have it in the first place. But now that we see that it's something that needs to be changed, that's why we're here today. And there's several different things we're going to talk about, so that everybody that has this hanging over their head will be able to go back to work. They have contracts out right now. They're waiting. What would you do if you had contracts and you were the broker or the agent who had them? So that's why we're here today. So I just ask your patience a little bit as we move on to some of these other items, and then you'll understand that we're trying to totally do away, actually, with this requirement of coming to a meeting.
And if I could just maybe clarify one thing there, we're really looking at the intersection of two issues. This meeting attendance requirement, which we require or have in the past required meeting attendance for a lot of different things, and that's an issue sort of across the board. But today we're just looking at where the meeting attendance requirement intersects with people who are trying to reinstate their license more than 60 days, but less than 1 year after their license expired. So that's the group that we're talking about, that where those two issues intersect. Now, Commissioner Taylor, were you able to think of a question?
Yes, I was going to say the people that have had their license already not invalid for over 60 days, they're not able to practice right now, correct? And haven't been supposedly for 60 days. Is that correct?
Just to make sure I understand your question, you're asking if somebody has had an expired license for more than 60 days and hasn't been reinstated yet, then they're not currently licensed. And I believe that's an accurate statement. Okay, are there additional questions on the issue that we're talking about right now, which is whether to give credit to the people who are in the room and on the phone to have this meeting count as their meeting attendance requirement? Any additional comments or questions about that motion?
I must not have an agenda. So that may be why I can't see forward as to the other things we'll be talking about.
Yeah, and there is, let's see, there's this issue. The next issue that we planned to talk about was whether, and I'm just giving you a roadmap right now. I don't want to start talking about these other issues yet. I want us to stay focused on the current motion, but I do want to give you a roadmap if you don't have an agenda. I think the next issue we want to talk about is whether to take the position that if you are practicing and have done everything except attend a meeting, then you will not be prosecuted for practicing without a license. That's one thing we want to talk about. We want to talk about amending reinstatement orders to remove the meeting requirement. And then we want to talk about adopting an emergency rule that will eliminate the meeting requirement and that will be effective quicker than the current rule that's currently pending before the Attorney General. So I think that is an overview of the roadmap.
But everyone has that overview except me?
I don't know.
Diane, this is Malcolm Young, Executive Director. You should have received an agenda that had like 4 items on it.
Okay. I'm looking back again.
Okay, and Brooke is also resending it to you as we speak. But all commissioners were notified with the notice as well as an attached agenda.
And Commissioner Hills, that what I just told you is my paraphrase of what I have in front of me. I tend to think I said it better than what was on the piece of paper, but you know I'm kind of partial to what I say. So but that's just a paraphrase. There's certainly other stuff in there, and it's written a little differently. But okay. So the motion that we have in front of us right now is to give credit to the people who are on the phone and in the room, so that they will have met the meeting requirement. So is there any additional discussion or question about that motion? If not, we're going to have Mr. Young call the roll. Okay, I don't hear anything further. So if you want to approve that motion, vote yes when he calls your name. If you don't like that motion, vote no when he calls your name. Mr. Young.
Roll call. John Grease.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment after the vote, but I vote yes on this particular motion.
Okay.
Rick Douglas.
Yes.
Gary Bloom.
Yes.
Diane Hills,
Yes.
Austin McMullen,
Yes.
Marcia Franks,
Yes.
Bobby Wood,
No.
Fontaine Taylor,
No.
Johnny Horn.
Yes.
Mr. Vice Chairman, it passes 7-2.
Thank you, Mr. Young. The motion is adopted. I will now call on Chairman Grease, who wanted to make a statement.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to drop off this call in just a second. I'm about to lose my cell service. But I hope that Mr. Young and Mr. McCormack make sure that the employees of the Real Estate Commission who have done nothing but try to enforce professionally the rules we have in place, and I am certain have taken some grief from certain people on this phone call and maybe even in attendance to that meeting, that they are doing their job the way they were supposed to, and this should in no way reflect on the quality of service those employees are providing. With that said, I hope you all have a great day. I'm heading to the mountains.
Thank you, Chairman Grease, and good luck.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that that message will be passed along to the staff who have rules that they have to enforce, and that they're doing a good job with that. It's up to us to try to change the rules if we see a situation that we don't think is fair. So that's what we're trying to address today. Okay, Commissioner Franks, did you want to make a statement
yes,
as well?
I just wanted to make a statement too. The only thing that I received was a letter from Paula Patterson. I did not receive an agenda. I did this morning receive a copy of the rule filing form, but I believe that's why we have some upset commissioners that they didn't get all the information. So I think they thought this was about one person, as I did, not the whole rule filing. So I think that's where that information maybe a ball got dropped somewhere.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's a very good point, and I think in the haste to try to address the issue, there were some things missed, and certainly apologize to all the commissioners for that, and that will be a learning point for the next time we have an issue come up. Thank you for clarifying that.
And this is Commissioner Wood, and I had no idea this was going to be a long thing. I really had the impression this was going to be like one issue, quick phone call, and I didn't realize we were going to have all these people on the phone call and stuff. And so I previously had an appointment, and so I'm going to have to drop off. And then when I get out of it, it's still going on, I'll call back in and try to do that. But I'm going to have to drop off.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Wood. I understand. If you finish your appointment and want to check back with us, that's great. I believe we do still have a quorum of 7, and so we can continue to operate. But thank you for your time this morning, Commissioner.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Vice Chairman, would you like for me to make the next recommendation?
Yes, please proceed, Mr.
Okay,
Young.
based on the pendency of the rule removing attendance requirement to not taking disciplinary action against a person solely for acting as a broker on expired license who has completed all other requirements for the reinstatement except for attending a meeting of the commission. So that would be the next thing I would like to discuss with you.
Okay, so the issue is, do we want to direct staff to not file complaints against brokers who have done everything necessary to be reinstated except for fulfill the meeting attendance requirement?
Move to approve directors.
Okay. We've got a motion from Commissioner Franks to approve that motion. Is there a second?
Second by Rick Douglas.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Douglas. Thank you. Okay, does everyone understand the motion? If not, please take the floor at this time for any questions or statements.
Commissioner McMullen.
Okay. Commissioner Hills, did you have a statement or question?
Yes, a question. Did you say brokers or licensees?
I believe this would apply to any licensee. Is that correct, Mr. Young? Yes, that would apply to any licensee.
And do we know if this is just a complaint of of doing business without a license. It is not that there are any other complaints filed.
That's correct.
That's right. If there was a complaint filed against a licensee for some other reason, then certainly that complaint would go forward.
Correct.
Okay.
This is limited just to people whose license expired and who have done everything needed to be reinstated other than attend a meeting.
Would that not be, isn't that against the law simply because we have these laws in effect, and yes, they haven't all been heard, but isn't that against our own policy?
Ms. Kirby.
So the commission has the discretion within the statutes to decide whether you want to issue disciplinary action against someone or not. Even if you find a violation that's technically a violation, you are not required to issue disciplinary action on somebody, even if a violation is found. That is completely up to the commission to decide if they want to do that or whether they think that's appropriate. So I think the motion here is for the commission to decide that if someone is found in violation of practicing real estate with an expired license solely for the purpose or for the issue that they have not attended the meeting, that the commission would not take disciplinary action on that person based upon that.
I think this motion is really to advocate for the wisest use of staff time. I mean, does it make sense for staff to open complaints against licensees who have done everything to be reinstated except attend the meeting? And do we want to put staff through the process of going through all of that only to get to the commission and then possibly end up with no violation or no penalty? And do we want to put the licensees through that as well, to have a complaint against them whenever they have done everything to be reinstated except for attend a meeting when the commission had already passed a rule that eliminated the meeting attendance requirement? So I think this is about being fair to staff and to the licensees and for efficiency. Commissioner Franks, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I just wanted to call for the vote.
Okay. Is there anybody else who wanted to say anything on this motion?
No, but I want you to restate the motion, please.
Sure. The motion is to direct staff not to take disciplinary action against a licensee for acting as a licensee on an expired license when that licensee has completed all other requirements for reinstatement except attending a meeting of the commission. If the complaint would be solely on that basis, then we're directing staff not to proceed with disciplinary action on that. Is that an accurate statement?
Correct.
Okay. So that's the motion. If you're in favor of it, vote yes when Mr. Young calls your name. If you're opposed to it, say no. Is there anybody else who wants to say anything? All right, Mr. Young.
Roll call. John Grease. Rick Douglas.
Yes.
Gary Bloom.
Yes.
Diane Hills.
Yes.
Austin McMullen.
Yes.
Marsha Franks.
Yes.
Bobby Wood. Fontaine Taylor.
Yes.
Johnny Horn.
Yes.
Mr. Vice Chairman, it passes with 7 yeses.
All right, the motion is adopted. Let's move to the next item, which I believe has to do with reinstatement orders. And I think that it would be beneficial to give just a little bit of background here to commissioners about the reinstatement orders, because I wasn't really aware of how that worked until I actually went back and read the rule. And let me just say my summary in my own words, and you can tell me if I missed something. But basically, when someone needs to be reinstated, there is a reinstatement order that is drafted and that individual signs. And the reinstatement order provides the circumstances and the requirements that they will have to complete in order to be reinstated. And currently, those reinstatement orders say that an individual must complete attendance at a meeting. So based on what we have done so far, there are still orders that are out there that have been signed by licensees that say they're going to pay their fees, they're going to be current on education, and they are going to attend a meeting in order to be reinstated. Is that an accurate summary?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Kirby. So this next motion that I believe Malcolm is going to recommend would amend those reinstatement orders to remove the meeting attendance requirement. Is that right, Ms. Kirby?
Well, I believe the idea with this proposal is that those reinstatement orders would still have to be signed. The ones that are already existing would still exist with their requirement in it. Anyone that falls into this situation between now and when the rule changes would still have to sign this agreement because it is a current requirement. However, once the rule is changed, whenever that might be, then any of those orders that haven't been fulfilled, so anybody that hasn't come to a meeting, then that requirement would no longer be required. That would go away.
Okay. So just to clarify that, you said that whenever the rule goes into effect that actually removes the meeting attendance requirement, then that language would automatically come out of the reinstatement orders. Is that right?
Right, because at that point, those individuals will have agreed in the reinstatement order to attend a meeting. So this would just be releasing them from that term that they agreed to in the order once the rule is changed and goes into effect.
Okay, and just to clarify that as far as procedurally, we're talking about when the rule goes into effect that removes the meeting attendance requirement. And I think that could happen in one of two ways. We have an existing rule that's at the Attorney General's office that's being considered. And so that rule would become effective when the Attorney General approves it and it's filed with the Secretary of State and the necessary waiting period has transpired. But we're talking about several months from now before that rule will become effective.
Right.
So that's one way in which the meeting attendance requirement could be eliminated by rule. The second is an emergency rule, which is the next item on our agenda for today after this current issue that we're talking about right now.
Right.
And that rule would become effective, I assume, pretty quickly because it's going to get some sort of priority consideration from the Attorney General's office and will not have to go through the 90-day waiting period. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So with that background, the issue is to remove from the reinstatement orders the meeting attendance requirement effective upon the rule to eliminate the meeting attendance requirement becoming effective. That's what we're talking about, okay? So that's the issue that's in front of us. Is there discussion on that, or is there a motion that anyone would like to make?
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Okay. We've got a motion by Commissioner Franks. Is there a second?
Second, and I have a question.
Okay. All right. Second by Commissioner Hills. Thank you. And I'll call on Commissioner Hills.
So this is from today forward. So if someone has been given the opportunity before and has not completed it, because that was done before today, if this passes, they have different options?
I believe for purposes of this motion, someone who has already signed a reinstatement order before today that includes a meeting attendance requirement, as soon as the rule becomes effective that eliminates the meeting attendance requirement, then this motion would also remove from that person's reinstatement order the meeting attendance requirement.
Okay. And then how do we notify them? Will we be notifying them, or?
I will turn to Mr. Young on
Yes, we will be notifying those that are in queue with reinstatement orders.
How will you notify them?
By letter.
So So the
But
individual
that
would.
doesn't seem to work.
I was going to say this is Brian McCormack again. We'll be very proactive in making sure I don't want people showing up to meetings here thinking that they're supposed to be at a meeting. We will do everything in our power: email, phone call, letter. I mean, I think this is critical. We don't want it's not a good situation to have folks attend when they don't have to attend, thinking they have to attend. So we will be very, very proactive in that process, both from the administration side and from the program side.
Thank you. Ms. Kirby?
So any individual who either has already signed a reinstatement order or will sign a reinstatement order between now and when the rule gets changed would still have the option to come to a meeting if they wanted to reinstate their license sooner. This would just be when those individuals choose not to come to the meeting to reinstate their license sooner. Then when that rule gets changed, that meeting requirement would go away, and then at that point they could be reinstated. So if they choose to take the path where they've signed the reinstatement order but they're not going to come to the meeting before the rule gets changed, then they're still not going to be reinstated. However, you've just adopted the motion, the proposal that they will not be disciplined for unlicensed activity, so that's where they would kind of fall until that rule gets changed. So that's kind of how these all are going to work together.
Then I'm confused. So we're saying, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So we're saying you don't have an active license, but we're not going to do anything against you for conducting business.
That was the previous motion, yes.
Shoo.
I agree.
Gosh, how do I explain this?
It's tricky because because it's an active law that we have, we can't just say we can't require anybody to do this anymore. So these are kind of the ways that we've thought about how we can still, following the law that we have on the books, how we can kind of address this issue. So it's still going to have to be included in those reinstatement orders that are either already existing or the ones that are going to be entered into between now and when the rule change goes into effect. It's still going to have to include that meeting requirement. But by voting on the previous motion to not impart disciplinary action on those that haven't attended the meeting but need to reinstate, that kind of allows them to keep practicing even without coming to the meeting, even though they still technically have an expired license.
And it will show expired on verify.com?
Yes, it will.
But it's only in the case of everybody having done everything else and turning it in and
right.
doing everything with the exception of attending the meeting.
Correct. They have to have completed their CE. They have to have paid their late fees. They have to be up to date on their E&O. I think those are the requirements, all the requirements. But yes, everything else has to be completed.
Will that explanation be in that letter that you send them?
Yes.
But if the public looked up somebody and to see if they have a license, it's going to show they're expired.
Correct.
Wow, these are the consequences that I was talking about. So the 15 people on today will now, because of our vote, they will show that they have an active license. Correct?
Yes.
Correct.
So can we have one of these calls every day?
Well, I just want to chime in here for a second. This is Assistant Commissioner McCormack again. Diane, I share what the concern you raise. This is not a perfect solution. It's very clear that it's not a perfect solution. There still is an opportunity for folks to attend the meeting in between now and to get your license reflected and verified. You have to attend a mevery that we cannot change that part.
Until the requirement goes away.
Until the requirement goes away. It's just nothing we can do. But one of the things we get called, and the questions, probably the most common question we get is, well, I've done everything else. I have to wait to the meeting requirement. Can I practice? Well, I think what we can say to them is the commission's not going to take action against you specifically for that piece. Like I said, I don't consider this to be an ideal solution, but it's one to which that you are. I think it's the best option under the circumstances, and you're going to have an opportunity in this next motion to push through emergency rule. And I think that option. I mean, I think we want to take all the things that you've said here are part of the argument to which why this needs to be impacted. And the AG's already had an opportunity to look at our rules, so we're hopeful that they would, having already reviewed it, could make some kind of speedy assessment. Now, I couldn't guarantee that they would approve it, but that's, I think, ultimately our last effort to do that.
And I think it's important that we not lose sight of the forest for the trees. The forest is that this commission already decided months ago to eliminate the meeting attendance requirement. And unfortunately, due to other laws and procedures that are required within the state, that decision won't be effective for several more months. And so these are the steps that we're taking in order to comply with the laws and procedures, but to have that decision made effective to as many people as possible, as quickly as possible.
So if I receive a phone call, would I be able, who do I request to have an emergency meeting for the licensee so that they would show active to give them the same opportunity?
That would be the executive director.
Emergency meetings can only be called for certain purposes. So this meeting today was called to address these issues of how we're going to address these specific individuals. There would be no substance of another meeting to call. I mean, we can't call an emergency meeting to address one specific licensee to count their attendance at a meeting, because there's no meeting for them to attend. The meeting content can't be that they need to attend a meeting, so we're going to call it a meeting.
And that's where the discrepancy lies, I think, with the commissioners, because they all thought it was about one person today, not a total change of rule.
Right, and I think this is truly unfair to the other people involved that have already been given the ruling to have to attend the meeting. I think it's totally unfair.
I agree.
But we have to move forward. I mean, it's
defending the public in any way in this matter with what we're doing today, as I see it.
well, if there's people who've lost their realtor because they can't practice, what do they do?
Well, they didn't follow the rules.
No, but I'm talking about the public.
Mm-hmm. Well, they get
That's the problem.
somebody else for the time being, I guess.
Now, I'm sorry. Chair, Mr.
Ms. Hill,
Chairman.
Commissioner Hills.
So I was writing down some of the licensees' numbers. I looked up two, and I haven't looked up anybody else's. Two I looked up. One was a June expiration, and one was an October 2015 expiration. So to me, it's not something that just there's some group that just got expired. I guess I'm just still trying to put my hands around who was able to be on this call and ends up with a result that is that exceeds what anybody else before or after will end up with. They will not end up with the same result.
Anyone whose license was expired more than 60 days but less than 1 year.
Correct. But the people on the call today, and please correct me if I'm wrong, end up with an active license on the site, and those are the only ones that will end up with the active license with the same situations.
Well, they will have fulfilled the meeting requirement and will therefore have their license will be reinstated. And others who have attended meetings also fulfilled the meeting requirement and their licenses were reinstated. Commissioner?
Ms. Hills, and I understand your concern. The primary purpose of calling this meeting was to address the issue moving forward. The fact that we're having a meeting was an opportunity for people to attend to get credit. The primary purpose of the meeting was to address the overarching problem. And, the fact that there are people who are going to get reinstated quicker, who are chomping at the bit to get reinstated quicker, I see as only a positive thing. I understand that there will be some folks that have to wait till the next meeting, but really the purpose of this meeting was to get this issue resolved as quickly as possible. That question around whether or not attendance was accepted, I saw that just as an ancillary benefit for the people that we could get here, and we tried hard to make this available to many people. But if we didn't give these folks credit, we still weren't giving the other folks. They're still going to have to come to the September meeting. So now you have 20 people who are licensed who are in this situation, where before, if you choose not to, no one will, and that would have been the case regardless of whether or not you'd had this meeting.
Okay, but we have, and I'm not there, so I don't know who's on the phone and who is not out of these 15 to 20 people. Some are by phone. Are we going to allow by phone in September?
That is an issue that could be addressed at the September meeting.
You'd have to know beforehand.
We could. I think we'd be glad to look into that as an option to prepare for the September meeting as well.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and the people who attended here and the ones who called in today, they did not know whether they would get credit for today's meeting until they got here and until we discussed it and voted on it earlier.
Correct.
So the current question is about how to deal with the reinstatement orders and to remove the meeting requirement from the orders when the rule becomes effective. So is there additional discussion or question on that motion?
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, who was that?
This is Johnny Horn, sir.
Oh, Commissioner Horn, you have a question?
I'm having trouble with the reinstatement order. Is that way I understood it, when you got a reinstatement order, you was good to go. But the way I see it now, like there may be some reservations that they could give you a reinstatement order, but there's still some other things you got to do. Is that right, or am I misinterpreting here?
As I understand your question, is there additional things they have to do that are not in the reinstatement order? I think that was what I heard you ask. And no, the reinstatement order contains everything that the law requires a person to do in order to be reinstated. The problem is that the law still said you have to attend a meeting, even though this commission had voted to remove that requirement. So what we're going to do is, whenever that becomes effective, that you don't have to attend the meeting, then that's going to come out of those reinstatement orders. So you don't have a situation where somebody, we could come back and say, well, you agreed to do this, even though the law doesn't require it.
Yeah, I think that would fix it neatly, but I was just wondering, is there other steps to it? When I get the reinstatement order, am I ready to go sell?
Ms. Kirby?
No, you still have to fulfill all of the requirements in the reinstatement order. So the reinstatement order itself, just by signing the reinstatement order, that does not allow you to reinstate your license. That's just an agreement saying you will fulfill these requirements in order to reinstate your license.
Okay, so it's a statement requirement, just an agreement then. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? If not, the motion is with respect to the reinstatement orders. If you support the motion, vote yes when Mr. Young calls your name. If you oppose the motion, vote no. Mr. Young.
John Grease. Rick Douglas.
Yes.
Gary Bloom.
Yes.
Diane Hills. Diane
Yes.
Hills.
Yes.
Austin McMullen.
Yes.
Marsha Franks.
Yes.
Bobby Wood. Fontaine Taylor,
Yes.
Johnny Horn.
Yes.
It is passed.
Okay, the motion is adopted. The next order of business is with respect to emergency rulemaking. And as an overview, this is an opportunity for us to approve a rule that removes the meeting requirement and that will become effective, hopefully, sooner than the existing rule, which is currently pending at the Attorney General's office. And in order to do that, the statute requires us to fulfill a requirement in order to justify an emergency rule. And Ms. Kirby, do you want to read what that requirement is? I think just the one that could potentially be applicable.
Sure, I can do that. In order to adopt an emergency rule, the Commission must first consider whether or not it meets one of the standards set out in the statutes for a basis upon which to enact an emergency rule. The one that could possibly apply in this situation is there's an imminent danger to the public health, safety, or welfare. An imminent danger to the public health, safety, or welfare exists, and the nature of the danger is such that the use of any other form of rulemaking authorized by this chapter would not adequately protect the public. So that is the one that we're looking at today. The Commission will need to adopt a statement of necessity, basically saying why this is necessary, and I have a drafted version of that to propose to you. I will also say that everything else that is in this emergency rulemaking package that I sent to you this morning, but really it's all the same as what you adopted a couple of months ago when you adopted to change the rule. Everything is the same. The questions that go to the Joint Government Operations Committee, everything else included in there is the same. The only thing that we'll need to look at separately today is the statement of necessity.
Okay, so with that explanation, I have a statement of necessity that someone drafted, and I added a little bit to it.
Okay.
And so I would like to propose the following statement of necessity. And we have to adopt this statement before we can proceed to emergency rulemaking. So we have to explain why we're doing this, and that's what this statement is designed to accomplish. So this is the statement of necessity that I would propose. An immediate danger to the public welfare exists, and the nature of this danger is such that the use of any other form of rulemaking authorized by Tennessee Code Annotated Title 4, Chapter 5, would not adequately protect the public. The current rules of the Tennessee Real Estate Commission require that any person seeking the reinstatement of their license after it has been expired for more than 60 days but less than 1 year attend an entire meeting of the Commission. Although the Tennessee Real Estate Commission has previously adopted a rule to eliminate the meeting attendance requirement for reinstatement, the new rule is not yet effective because it is under review by the Attorney General. The Commission has determined that the continued effectiveness of the rules requiring such attendance constitute an immediate danger to the public, as they prevent those reinstating from becoming compliant, causing the risk of substantial loss of revenue, as well as causing a danger for the public, who may find their transactions handled by a broker who accidentally allows a license to lapse but is unable to reinstate the license and continue the transaction despite substantial attempts for compliance. An immediate danger to the public welfare also exists from the continued enforcement of the meeting attendance requirement because expired licensees are unable to complete transactions. Members of the public thus are put in the extreme financial and logistical hardship by the inability to complete these significant transactions that are, for most people, the largest and most consequential transactions they will enter into in their lifetimes.
Move to approve this statement of necessity.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Franks. Is there a second?
Second.
Rick
All right.
Douglas, second.
All right, seconded by Commissioner Hills. Now, is there any question or discussion just regarding the statement of necessity? If there isn't, then we will move to vote. And please answer yes or no when Mr. Young calls your name.
Okay, this is on the statement of necessity. John Grease, Rick Douglas,
Yes.
Gary Bloom,
Yes.
Diane Hills,
Yes.
Austin McMullen,
Yes.
Marsha Franks,
Yes.
Bobby Wood, Fontaine Taylor,
Yes.
Johnny Horn.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, this motion has been approved.
Right, the motion is adopted, and the statement of necessity has been adopted. So therefore, we can now move on to the emergency rulemaking. And the proposed rule, basically, it eliminates from Rule 1260-1-.21 Part Part 2B3, as well as eliminating the final clause from Rule 1260-1-.21 2B5 as it's currently numbered, and it provides for the renumbering of the paragraphs based on the elimination of paragraph number 3.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
And again, that's the same language amendment that you voted to accept with the proposed rules a couple of months ago.
Right. So basically, this will do the same thing as the previous rule, but we're just doing it under an emergency condition so that it will become effective sooner, hopefully.
Hopefully, yes.
Okay. So is there a motion to adopt this emergency rule?
Johnny Horn.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Horn. Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, Rick Douglas.
Okay, we have a second by Commissioner Franks, who beat Commissioner Douglas to the tape by a nose. Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Horn, second by Commissioner Franks to adopt the emergency rule. As we've discussed, this rule will hopefully eliminate the meeting attendance requirement more quickly than the rule that's currently pending at the Attorney General's office. Is there any discussion or questions or comments from anyone?
So the new number 4 will make it so the licensee will show active.
Yes, and it will be retroactive back to the original expiration date. Is that correct, Ms. Kirby?
Yes, that is the current requirement as well.
And this will just take out that language that says, including timely attending one regularly scheduled commission meeting.
And this will take care of the people who are not here today, but that would have been August or July of 2016.
Well, I think for anyone who has not attended a meeting, that requirement will be gone when this rule becomes effective.
Correct, but just voting on the emergency rule today does not remove the requirement. This is just a process which we're attempting to use to make the process go quicker. It will still be up to the Attorney General's office of whether they want to allow this to move forward in the emergency rule process as opposed to the proposed rule process, which is what we've already gotten started.
My understanding
how long will we hear from them for this emergency rule?
Well, I can't say for sure how long it'll be before they let us know whether they'll accept the emergency rule or not. But if they do accept it, it will take away that 90-day waiting period where it has to sit at the Secretary of State's office before it can go into effect. So essentially, it will remove that 90-day waiting period. The rest of it, the approval from the Attorney General's office, that I can't say how long that will take for sure.
Okay.
But they do, if it is approved as an emergency rule, they will expedite getting it through.
And Commissioner Hills, it's my expectation that the department and the administration will advise the Attorney General of the importance of having this emergency rule approved quickly.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments about the motion, which is to adopt the emergency rule? Okay, hearing none, let's vote. If you support the motion, please vote yes. If you oppose the motion, please vote no. Mr. Young?
Rick Douglas,
Yes.
Gary Bloom,
Yes.
Diane Hills,
Yes.
Austin McMullen,
Yes.
Marsha Franks,
Yes.
Bobby Wood, Fontaine Taylor,
Yes.
Johnny Horn.
Yes.
You summarize the vote.
And it is unanimously approved by the 7 commissioners remaining on the line.
Okay, thank you. The motion is adopted and the emergency rule will go forward. The statute requires us to adopt a statement with respect to the impact of this rule on local governments. And so I propose that we adopt the following statement. This rule has no projected impact on local governments.
Move to approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Franks, seconded by Commissioner Hills. I don't think we need to discuss this, and so let's go ahead and vote. Mr. Young, will you call the roll?
John Grease, Rick Douglas,
Yes.
Gary Bloom,
Yes.
Diane Hills,
Yes.
Austin McMullen,
Yes.
Marsha Franks,
Yes.
Bobby Wood, Fontaine Taylor,
Yes.
Johnny Horn. Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, it is 7 in favor of financial impact statement.
Thank you. The motion is adopted. This concludes our agenda, I believe.
Commissioner
I'm
McMullen.
sorry.
Can we go ahead and also, even though they're exactly the same as what the commission approved before, go ahead and readopt the additional information required by the Joint Government Operations Committee?
Is there a motion to adopt the previously approved information required by the Joint Operations Committee?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Franks, seconded by Commissioner Taylor. In the absence of any discussion, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor, please vote yes when Mr. Young calls your name, and those opposed vote no. Mr. Young?
John Grease, Rick Douglas,
Yes.
Gary Bloom,
Yes.
Diane Hills,
Yes.
Austin McMullen,
Yes.
Marsha Franks,
Yes.
Bobby Wood, Fontaine Taylor,
Yes.
and Johnny Horn.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, you have 7 yeses that approve this motion.
Right, the motion is adopted. Is there any other business that we need to
Yes.
address? Mr. Young?
The other question that I have is as a form of procedure with other meetings, we require people to sign in and also people to sign out. So I would think that it would be appropriate today for me to also call the roll of the people that signed in.
For what reason? To make sure they're still there?
See if they attended the meeting.
The licensees is what you're
Right.
talking about.
Yes.
So if so, I'd like to proceed, although I understand there could be some technicalities of people that have dropped off. And
I think with the technical difficulties that we faced already, I would hate to penalize somebody. We know that they were here. I think people stayed on the line for as long as they could. And so I think we should go with the list that we have.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, anything else? Commissioner
I have
Hills.
a question. Actually, 2 questions just for the commissioners who, how do you handle it in your office? This is just for me. So how do you handle when a licensee's license will be expiring? How do you handle it? I'm looking for just any input.
Well, if their license hasn't expired yet, I'm just, I guess, encourage them to stay on top of their expiration date so that they're not expired. But I guess, are you asking if their license is already expired?
No. I'm asking any of the commissioners how they handle it in their office to to stay in front of the license expiring, that they check with their licensees and things, and just as to how they do it. Commissioner Franks, how do you do it in your office?
I have licenses copies of licenses that are hanging right next to my desk, and I'm very anal about it and look at it all the time. And I would say if I had someone in this predicament, that as the principal broker, I would certainly want to stay on it. Might be checking daily to see when that expired goes away. And we do have the ability to speak to Mr. Young at the commission to see, what's the status, if he's heard anything about how that is moving along with the Attorney General's office. So that's how I would do it. I would still allow, if the commission allows that they continue working, I would allow them to continue working. Is that what you were asking, Diane?
Just how I'm not the principal, but I have it written down 60 days before with every licensee.
Right,
so
and that's when I start.
Remind them.
I start reminding mine 60 days in advance of them, so they have time to complete their education and everything.
I used to make mine come in and show me proof of everything they had done, and show me copies when they sent things in and copies when they got it back, and we were very strict about that.
Yeah.
Well, I thank everyone for their diligence and patience and understanding in this process. We have reached the end of our agenda, and I will close with just one thought, which is that listening to some of the issues here today, and I know it's hard to find fairness for everyone in this situation, but I was reminded of the parable of the workers in the vineyard. I'm not going to read it to you, but you might want to go read Matthew 20:1 through 16. It just came to mind during some of the discussion here today. There being no further business, the meeting is adjourned.
I thought you were going to recite it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
He's the manager of the Vanderbilt football team.
Thank you. Hello.